Welcome back to the Rebuilt Parish podcast. On today's episode, we have one of our partner parish leaders, Chris Kozlowski from St. Isidore Parish in Michigan. And let me tell you what, Chris has such a great story to tell, all about how his parish and the whole group of his family of parishes came to the Rebuilt Conference in 2025, what happened when they took a next step and had Tom and David, two of our coaches, come out to their parish for a strategic offsite, and what has happened since. I can't wait for you to hear the results that he talks about and for some of his tips for what your parish can do if you're taking a road trip to the conference and how to be intentional about that. We'll see you inside the episode. Well, hey there, Chris. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Well, can you take us back to the beginning? What was happening in your parish or your family of parishes, because you've got one of those fun situations, before you came to the conference?
Yeah, no, great question. So St. Isidore is a special community. It's large. It's over 3,000 registered families, totaling about 10,000 people. We regularly have about over 2,000 people worshiping with us. So we are busy, and there's a lot of life to the parish. We have strong service initiatives. We have our own baby pantry. We partner with people to partner with a different firm to distribute food twice a month in our parking lot. So there's a lot of great things that are going. What I knew why we wanted to partner with Rebuilt is, if you've ever read the book by Jim Collins, Good to Great,
Yes.
It's easy to get from bad to average or from average to good, but it's really difficult to get from good to great.
Yes.
And we know that good is not good enough for the Lord. So we just realized that if we're going to get better, if we're going to take that step to great, we have to be intentional about it.
Oh my gosh. Now let's talk about what was going on. What was the state of your parish before you came to the Rebuilt Conference?
Yeah, so we were doing a lot of things. We had our pillars, connect, reach, build, or the pillars here at St. Isidore. We've kind of had them in the background for years. We're not a lot of intentionality around the programming to match. So things were good, and things were actually even increasing. Like we've seen steady increase in mass attendance and our collections since COVID. So we've actually exceeded our pre-COVID numbers. But again, we knew we wanted to get better than that. We knew we needed to be intentional about that.
Oh my gosh. Now let's talk about when you and your team showed up together at conference. So first of all, your team stood out because you all had these branded polos. I want to hear a little bit about that. And then I want to hear about your experience there too.
Yeah, so that goes into the Family of Parishes initiative. So we have 3 parishes that are working together. And like any team, you have to have a uniform that matches, right? So we've branded ourselves Disciples Unleashed, is what we call us as a family of parishes. And we thought that's step one. Like you dress the same, you're doing a lot of stuff the same in order to have a same type of continuity as you lead. So that was just like one step in the way. But yes, I've heard quite a few people say that, when all 10 of you came and you were all branded, like it stuck out. And that was a compliment to us. And it kind of something we take for granted because it's just what we do. But it was cool for all of us to be there together to see what Rebuilt had to offer.
I think that's so special that you first, a lot of times when parishes begin working together as a family of parishes or a network of parishes, different dioceses call it different things. Sometimes there can be hard feelings, but it sounds like if you had them, you maybe overcame them or you just went into it positively. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Oh gosh. So we are very blessed. And I've always given credit to our leaders, our pastors, that some of these new structures challenge their way of thinking. Staff is usually pretty amenable to whatever the leaders want, right? Whatever the pastors want. So our pastors were lucky because they all came together and said, for the betterment of all, this is how we're going to do it. So we had a moderator. We have 3 parishes come together, still as 3 parishes, but in one unified collaborative structure, which is our family of parishes. Now we're actually going through a formal restructuring. But at the time, that was just one of the things that, we had to do. And we prayed to the Spirit to move us through the process. And part of that was, okay, let's get same type of leadership motivation together. And when I threw it out there to all 3 staffs, because I already knew that I wanted Isidore staff to get there. But when I threw it out to all 3, people jumped at it. And that's why we ended up with so many.
I love that out of the 3 parishes, you've got 10 people to come. You showed up like looking uniform. And I remember seeing these and I was like, is that a company? What is this?
We got that. People said, what is your product? They were asking us. And I'm like, no.
Discipleship.
We have the best product. Yes, exactly. Discipleship.
Is the
exactly.
product. No, I love that because I feel like that's a great example for our parishes who are maybe going through some of that restructuring, that it can be a really positive thing and you can collaborate. And then how special that you got to all travel together and come to the conference and experience that all together.
Absolutely. And I encouraged a road trip. Now, some people decided to fly. I'm a big road trip guy. So we even made that part of our journey and had questions about what we expected out of the conference. Where we felt the Holy Spirit moving us. And that's why we're even in the van seats as we were heading out. And I think that helped set the tone on being open-minded to what the conference had to offer.
Okay, tell us more about that. Let's talk about pre-conference then. On the way down, you had questions? Tell us about those.
So anyone who's been on a road trip knows with me, especially for work, I always have like on the hour, every hour questions to kind of get us thinking. It's just me. I'm a dork and I admit it. My kids will agree to that. My wife will agree to that, but I want to have fun on the road trip. So yeah, as we got in the car, we just had different discussions about our hopes, maybe our fears, what we were hoping to get out of it, what we weren't expecting to get out of it. It just made for fun, made for a fun time on the way there. And I looked at it. Staff doesn't do enough bonding. And we were in the car for what it was, an 8-hour drive, I believe, 8.5 hours. I'm like, let's not waste that time just sitting on our own or on our iPads or phones. Let's use it very intentionally. So we used it to kind of bond and even dream a little bit. Even some of the things I said, hey, whatever we say in this van is going to stay in the van. Don't worry, but let's be real honest about what things could we sunset? What things should we be getting? It was really great.
That's such an intentional use of your time, Chris. I love that. And now let's pause because I want to hear about the ride home in a bit, but I want to talk about then what was your team's experience like at the conference?
Yeah, so the conference, it was so great because most of us had read the books. And even before I got to St. Isidore, the leadership and people on the team had read the book and wanted to adapt some of the principles, but there was still a lot of room to grow in that. So, when we got to the conference, it was great because you see everything come alive, right? It's one thing to read about volunteers. And then when you see, back to branding, all these volunteers with the same t-shirts on, and what was more impressive is the same energy. Because I've been in church world for 36 years, and it's hard to even get 5 volunteers on the same page, let alone hundreds. And you could just see that hundreds of people had come together to rally about bringing Christ to others through this rebuilt ministry of Church of the Nativity. And it was awesome. Words cannot capture, even in writing, even what I'm saying now, the experience. You have to experience it for yourself. So then when you see this book and you read some of the concepts, to see it come to life at the parish.
Right.
It's absolutely amazing. And right away, people were blown away by the parking lot team, blown away by the greeters and all the people that were volunteering registers. And you could tell people had prayed for you. People even said, oh, you were someone that I was praying for. But I caught you off guard. It was so awesome though. So the conference made it all come to life, and you really felt like almost you're immersed in the story of the book, but like kind of like the next chapter, almost like the Acts of the Apostles after Jesus was here, right? Like, okay, here's the after. This is what's going on. So it's really cool.
I love that description. I can't wait to tell Tom that you said that because I think he's going to appreciate that so much. So I would love to talk about then. So you got to go to the main stage sessions. You got to go to the breakout sessions. What stuck out to you and your team during those?
Yeah. Trying to think, the thing that stuck out most to me was what we knew some of our intentionality about going was we need to get more volunteers, which I think everyone feels. You always have that 80-20 rule, that 20% of the people do 80% of the work. That's kind of universally standard. So me, I start dreaming like, man, what if we could move to 40%? We could do twice as much. And that's not a big lift. So we wanted to go and understand how Church of the Nativity is engaging their volunteers. So layers of leadership. There's many of us that were in those sessions. Message series, which is something we've adopted now, at least in a trial run on Sunday nights. So the people on the worship team attended those sessions. We were all, I think, ready to understand what we wanted. We had all even prayed about the different sessions and which ones we thought would mean the most to our respective communities. So yeah, so much sticks out. The whole group and hearing people's experience, but even in the small, like more focused sessions, really hearing what Church of the Nativity does in these realms. And what I love about it, and I think what people maybe misunderstand, Church of Nativity is not telling anyone how to do it. They are just telling very authentically their story and how they are doing it. There's a big difference. We're not telling you how, we're telling you how we did it, not how to do it. But from there, you can kind of ask the Holy Spirit to move your team, to move your heart and say, okay, how can we take some of their theory and apply it to what we're doing? And that's the beauty of the conference.
What happens when parish leaders stop standing still and start taking bold steps forward? Well, come find out and join us at the 2027 Rebuilt Conference. Pastors, parish staff, and ministry leaders from around the country will be gathering and joining together at Church of the Nativity in Timonium, Maryland, to experience what it looks like when a parish is fully alive and aligned on mission. The Rebuilt Conference is for parish leaders by parish leaders. By joining, you'll hear practical strategies and real stories of parish renewal. You'll get to connect with leaders facing the same challenges you are and leave feeling encouraged, equipped, and ready to move forward with clarity and confidence. So join us May 3rd and 4th, 2027 for 2 full days focused on parish renewal, discipleship, and building a thriving Catholic parish. Join the waitlist today at rebuiltconference.com to receive conference updates, speaker announcements, and early bird pricing before tickets open publicly. We can't wait to see you in May.
Now, Chris, I want to hear then about this van ride home. Tell us I'm just imagining right now, like, first of all, everybody's energized by conference, but also tired at the end of the conference because it's a lot. I want to hear what did those discussions look like? What was that? And how big were you dreaming in this van?
Right. So the way there, you're kind of, you're going to have a little anxiety of like, what are you going to take in? On the way back, it was more like, oh, now what are we going to do with it?
Yes.
And I want to say, I don't know that I asked more than a single question on the way home. It was more like, let's debrief. And I remember one person who wasn't with us on the way there, flew there, but then rode back with us, was talking the whole time with just so much energy and enthusiasm about, okay, this is how we can apply this. This is how we can apply that. Or have we ever thought about this? Because when's the last time you had that much access to your pastor too, right? To be with your pastor for all those hours and really ask point blank, hey, what do you think about this? So yeah, the ride home, again, for anyone who would consider road tripping in, use that time intentionally, and it can really add to the experience. Because debriefing conferences is something that so often we don't do. You go, you get fed, and then you're done. You go home, and then you're like, okay, back to my day-to-day. That gets pushed to the side. So being able to dream together on the way home, it was great.
100%. I think that's something that if people take nothing else away from this conversation, which you've got so much goodness in here, Chris, it is take that time to debrief. And doing that on the road trip home is such a great way. I think we might have to ask you to make up some road trip questions for us.
I would love to.
People are going to be asking, what are these questions that Chris has been asking? So we might have to put those out there. But now here's what I want us to just take further. So you had this debriefing on the way home. And now I know that David and Tom came out to your parish to help you with a strategic offsite. Talk to me about what led to inviting them out to your parish.
Oh my gosh, I love this question too. So many of us, I don't want to say we're cynical because we're not cynical, but we realize there has to be intentionality behind making things occur. So as we came back, we said, we don't want to just take all this time and energy we put into going and attending a conference just to say, oh, that was great. We knew we needed to take the next step. And if your parish is like my parish, sometimes it's hard for an internal voice to be heard as loud as an exterior voice. So we said, why don't we reach out? We heard them talk about coaching at the conference. Why don't we reach out and see if Tom, and specifically we asked for Tom because there's just something about him. Now, every coach that we've been associated with so far has been fantastic, but we really wanted to see if Tom had any availability to help us. And then they paired Tom and David. So it was like a dynamic duo to come out, do our offsite, and really help us really think about what our priorities were and put some action steps together. And then we have someone from the Rebuilt team with David now. So it's David and Adrian, who are our official coaches and have been with us for a few months now.
I love that you took that extra step right there. Like, all right, we're going to debrief, but we want to make sure that we are making the most impact with all of this time and energy we just put into attending this conference. When you say dynamic duo, for people who don't know the org chart, Tom is the president of Rebuilt and David is our COO. So the fact that you got both of them to come out there, and strategic offsites are David's jam. That's something that he's just so good at. So to have both of those together, what a blessing.
Absolutely.
That's incredible. What did that look like when you had them out there? What did that feel like for your team too?
Yeah. So again, it was a kind of a new pattern. And when David first asked me, Chris, what is your hope through coaching? I very clearly said, and I still believe to this day, is establishing a leadership rhythm. I think if a community can establish a leadership rhythm, that's where all the good can happen. When we're not really sure when our next meeting is, or what our next time to really strategize, it gets lost. Yeah. So I wanted that, and they came in and helped us to identify our priorities. Met with us one-on-one, which maybe we could talk about later because that was, I think, a key piece. And then help the team to really flesh out some goals. So it wasn't just a few people on our leadership team. It was our entire team. 20-something people came together we had previously assigned them to each priority so that way there was more people who took ownership. And then from there, we established plans. I think it was a year plan, like, okay, here are the different things we want to accomplish in the first quarter, second quarter, and so on. But the offsite was great. We did it at a retreat house that was nearby. So we took us away from the parish. So it fresh minds, really where we could think clearly and strategically away from our day-to-day.
That's such a great idea. We talk about offsites here a lot, and getting the team away from the parish to be able to really focus helps so much, because when you're still in the building, that's not going to stop people from saying, hey, Chris, can I pop in and ask you really quick? Right. You really get to truly be focused. And I love that you had the entire team there too, not just the leadership team. So that way, everybody, I feel like you're getting their buy-in a little bit more too. If they're hearing straight from David or Tom, this is what we're recommending. It's not, oh, this was Chris's idea. This is what David and Tom are suggesting. And I think that just what a great idea to bring them all together like that.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's important, and sometimes at different parishes you have like these hierarchies that people just are weirded out by. But really, we're all in this, and if we want buy-in, we can certainly champions emerged. Once you establish a priority group, but it wasn't always the directors or the people that you might have thought, which was cool, and that's kind of like the Holy Spirit movement, right? Like someone who you may not have expected to take a lead somewhere did. Yes. It was good to have the whole team there.
I think that's so great. Now tell us a little bit about those one-on-one meetings. What did that reveal or maybe unlock that wouldn't have happened otherwise?
Yeah, I think whenever you're doing something, you have to have trust. And the fact that David took the time, and we know how busy he is, and how much responsibility he has, the fact that he met with each of us one-on-one, it never felt rushed. It always felt intentional. For me, I actually am like, oh my gosh, I hope I didn't talk too much, because I felt like I could have talked to him for hours, because he was really helping plant the seed of where we can see growth and taking on some of the responsibility of that change, right? Like it's not just going to happen organically. It's got to be intentional. But him meeting with each person one-on-one, I think showed us that he cared, that he really cared enough about us to understand our roles, our hopes, our frustrations, all those things prior to the offsite. So then we were leaning into it a little bit more as the time nearby, or as the day occurred.
That's so smart. Now I want to ask this question. Had your parish already decided, yes, we're definitely going to coach before this offsite, or did you decide to go into coaching after the offsite?
That's a good question. I'm fairly certain, and my memory's sometimes hazy, but I'm fairly certain we had not. It was afterwards we were praying about it and thinking about it and saying, yes, let's do this. I believe that was the timing. So offsite first, and then we said, okay, if we're really going to do this, we need coaching. And that's when we brought back David, and then he brought in Adrian from the Rebuilt group too.
So let's talk about that now. So now that you're in coaching with David and Adrian, what's been most helpful in building that momentum and keeping your team aligned?
Yeah. So they have an established rhythm of their meetings. So, and they send the agenda ahead of time. They ask you always for your input, like, here's our agenda, but what else do you want to see, or what's not there? Which I love that, because it gives you some ownership. But essentially celebrating our wins, identifying our challenges, and then kind of working through those things. But now there's a rhythm of it. Every other week we are meeting with them. there's an accountability in our own head that, hey, we have to report back to them progress, right? It's not heavy-handed. David's not like, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. He's just asking, how you doing? Helping you to identify what are the roadblocks. And I love it about him, especially, and Adrian, what can we do to help you through them, right? It's not just like, oh, you've identified these roadblocks, not figure it out. They want to offer their wisdom, their expertise in church management. And that's freeing to us. And it's not us trying to say, oh, we have to figure all these things out. And I will say it is a new muscle. And I've identified that as a leader on the team, that it's a new muscle. People aren't quite comfortable with this reporting and this accountability. In church world, accountability is kind of a funny thing. So, and I don't mean that with any negative, but it's just, we don't always have accountability metrics as they do in the business world. So, establishing those things has been fantastic. And again, I can't say enough good about David and Adrian in particular, and how they're trying to journey with us and help us through these.
Sometimes all it takes is one moment, one conversation, or one weekend for a parish to begin moving in a new direction. That's why Rebuilt Parish has launched our Rebuilt Speakers Network. Whether it's a parish mission, a diocesan event, or a strategic offsite with your staff, our team helps Catholic leaders step back, focus on what matters most, and leave with a vision for what is possible. And beginning this fall, Tom Corcoran will be traveling to parishes to speak about our latest book, Jesus, the Rich Young Man, and the Meaning of Life. This presentation will help your whole parish grow deeper in their relationship with Jesus in a culture filled with distractions. If you'd like to bring a Rebuilt speaker to your parish or diocese, email me, Colleen@rebuiltparish.com, to learn more and to book your speaker today. Chris, I'm so glad that you brought up the accountability piece too, because it does help with personal accountability, right? Like when you last week in your coaching had talked about, oh, our goal is by the next time we talk to have X, Y, or Z done. And then it's the day before your next coaching and you're like, oh, shoot, I didn't do that. I better get on it, right? It makes you take action. And as silly as that sounds, like, and you said it, David's not going to come down on you and be like, Chris, what the heck? You dropped the ball. He's not going to do that. But that accountability where I want to be able to tell my coach that, yes, I did this, or I took that next step, or I moved the needle this way. That really makes all the difference in the world in making progress in your parish.
Absolutely. And then even hearing one another report back on both like the wins, the positive movement, and the frustration, because then you can say, well, I'm a leader. How can I help that person work through, their roadblock? So it's, instead of being siloed, which we always hear about as one of the, the negatives of church, you have your discipleship formation silo, your administration silo, your worship silo. Now all of us leaders are hearing each other's frustrations and in vulnerability and saying, hey, I'm having a difficult time getting through it, and offering assistance. That's how a team forms. So yeah, we're very blessed.
That's so good. Now, let's talk about some of that traction and growth that your parish is seeing. Can you share just a few concrete ways that you've seen these things change since taking these next steps?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's. I was trying to really think about this so I could identify it. The biggest concrete growth initiative is we rolled out our message series. So, Rebuilt, if you do know or don't know, they and Church of the Nativity use message series to get their message across. Well, 8 years ago, 9 years ago, we added a 5:30 Sunday Mass. And when we added it, we knew we were going to use that as an experiment Mass, because it was not, there was no expectations to it. So when we started praying about how we could get the message series out there, we decided we were going to do it at our Sunday night, 5:30 p.m. Mass. Well, in trying to measure success, it's one of the easiest places because we have a 13% growth from the first quarter of last year to the first quarter of this year. The biggest difference, first quarter of this year, we introduced a message series.
Wow.
So, that's a very concrete, hey, things are going well there, right? People are responding. And to try to get our staff on board, another concrete thing, because even when message series started here, it was kind of oh, that's just happening with worship on the side. About 2 months ago, we started every one of our staff meetings reviewing the video of the message series and using the questions that are part of the small group discussion questions that Rebuilt has built. And it's in their, inventory of their, what's it called? Where you have access to the library. The content library. Sorry, I knew there was a term that I was forgetting. So you can grab it right from the content library, apply it to what you're doing. And now we're having staff discussions around the message series. And really, one of our priorities is small groups. So to me, this is laying further foundation on what small groups will look like. And we're going to model it as a staff so that hopefully it goes out to our entire community. So yeah, those are some real concrete things.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Are you doing the small groups course in the fall?
I'm not in particular, but there's people on our team that are.
All right. I can't wait to see them in there, because what a great example that you're doing that with your staff and making that a part of your staff meeting, modeling that small group. That's amazing.
And one of the things from the Rebuilt Small Group book is, are you a church with small groups? Are you a church of small groups? I'm like, yeah, I don't want to just be a church that has some. We want to establish ourselves as one of our priorities. That's why it's one of our priorities. We want small groups to be a key piece. The larger the church, the more intentionality has to be about becoming connected. And I think that's what small group for a church of our size makes so much sense if we're going to go from good to great, like I mentioned earlier.
Oh, I love that. I can't wait for them to share that with the other parishes too. And Chris, I just have to share. So you've had a double-digit increase in attendance.
Yeah.
Because since instituting message series at all of your masses now.
Well, just at the 5:30 mass
Just at 5:30?
Yeah. And I'm only tracking just the 5:30 with that 12% increase, because the other ones right now we're leaving alone, and we do have good traction there. But I'm just saying our Sunday night year over year growth is about 13%.
That's exciting to hear. Well, I'm excited to hear what happens when you bring message series in to the whole
throughout.
Parish.
Right.
Wow. Well, let's talk about this a second. There are pastors and parish leaders out there who feel stuck and unsure where to begin. What would you say about starting with something like taking your team to the conference or having a strategic offsite?
Yeah. So if you haven't read the book, the original, I think you got to start there, right? You have to have the vision of what Rebuilt is trying to accomplish so you understand where to go. But my big thing is all these things are good. And if you look at which one you should start on, to me, I would do it the way that we did it, which is start with the book, attend the conference, go to coaching. That makes logical sense. But maybe an easy first step could be coaching. You get the coaching, you understand the rhythm, and then that makes you want to experience it that way. So you really could start anywhere. I was lucky enough to read the book, to be on a team that had already read the book. I actually went to the conference when it was called the Matter Conference. So I've been going for years. And there is something about going that takes you to the next step of seeing all the things they talk about. Not only the people come alive, but even like the facilities and how they communicate and all these things. So I would just say, get unstuck. Whichever way you're going to do it, wherever you're stuck, get unstuck by doing something. Yes. Because the only way you're going to get unstuck is by changing the way you're doing things. So one of those three is a good next step forward.
I love that. Just take that next right step.
Yeah.
So good. Now, Chris.
And one of the things.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I was just thinking one of the things that I attended a Rebuilt webinar years ago. They talked about how the Holy Spirit is present if you're uncomfortable. So that getting unstuck might be uncomfortable, but it's a sure sign the Spirit's working. The Spirit takes us out of our comfort zone. So if we embrace it, and conversely, if you are stuck but complacent, that's a sure sign the Holy Spirit isn't working. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of scary, right? If you realize we have to be authentic to the Spirit, allowing the Spirit to move and help our church grow. So, and I don't, again, not trying to be negative. I'm saying, hey, if you start looking at it as a negative, like complacency is a negative, that really will force you out of that stuck and get moving on something.
Definitely. Oh, I love that. I love that. Now, Chris, as we wrap up, looking back, how has God been at work through this whole process? From reading the book to doing the webinars to coming to conference to the offsite to coaching. And what would you say to someone who's considering taking that same path as you?
Yeah. So start to see God at work. It's such a great thing. Again, there was times where I was on teams, and maybe some people that are going to watch this podcast feel the same way, where everyone is just saying, it's okay. What we're doing is good enough. And really to move beyond that, it's good enough, because good enough is not good enough for God. Right. And really embracing that. And the book helped me to understand there are churches like Church of the Nativity who decided and was very intentional about dreaming bigger. Not for them. It's not for Father White. It's not for Tom Corcoran. It's for everybody, right? It's for your people. And so to embrace that and say, hey, we can make this church better. We can have more impact. We can, worship more vibrantly. We can just generally affect the community in a positive way through our Catholic lens. That's a great thing to feel and understand. And I think this journey, there's no doubt that God has kept putting on my place, like, you're not alone, or on my heart, you're not alone. This is how one church has done it. What can you take from that to really help the church that you're currently serving to grow? So the books, it's a great starting point for understanding it. The conferences, again, make it come alive, and the coaches really cement the behind the work scenes. The analogy I think of is a professional athlete. You think of professional athletes, everyone says, I want to be a professional athlete. And I remember even when my kids were little, and this is not a knock on my kids, they're fantastic. But I said, do you want to be a professional athlete? Why? And are you willing to put the time in? So a professional athlete does not, yes, there's God-given talent, but there's also a lot of sacrifice. There's a lot of hard work. There's a lot of discipline to get to be that professional athlete. Same thing from churches. Again, if we're going to go from good to great, it's not going to happen organically. It has to happen very intentionally. So are we willing, do we want to just be a great church? Or are we willing to put in the time to be a great church? And that takes all the things like of a professional athlete: discipline, intentionality, hard work, really hard discussions. And that's where I think coaching comes in. It helps you work through all those things instead of just hoping it happens, to say, no, actually, this is the plan to make that happen.
Chris, I think that's such an incredible analogy. If you want to be a professional athlete, you have to put in the work. If you want to be a professional working towards making disciples in your parish, you have to put in the work. And
100%.
you think about these professional athletes, they have coaches. And that's one of the steps that you took. You got yourself some coaches to help take your parish to the next level.
Right. Even the dogs agree.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you for taking the time to pour into our listeners today. I'm so grateful, and I can't wait to see you at the next conference.
Thank you, Melissa. Thanks for all you guys are doing to help motivate all of us out in the field and help to give us encouragement as we're going on this journey, and to know we're not alone and that we are all truly in this together. So thank you. And thanks for inviting me to be a part of this.
Of course. And if you want to know how you can have a journey like Chris's, coming to the conference, having a strategic offsite at your team, you can email Colleen at rebuiltparish.com if you want to have an offsite. And if you want to come to the conference, go to rebuiltparish.com/conference and sign up for our wait list, and you will hear everything that you need to know about the conference, including our early bird pricing, which will be coming out. Well, thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you next time.